Welcome to Chat Off the Mat. Today, I welcome Zoe Rappaport. Zoe is a women's health psychologist for over 10 years. Her passion and purpose is to help women connect with their most authentic selves to live empowered and fulfilled lives. She believes that the first step to embodying their full potential is finding and owning their voice.
Okay.
Welcome, Zoe.
Hi, I'm really happy to be here.
And I'm happy as well. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a women's health psychologist. I've been doing that for about 12 years. And I also am a women's empowerment, leadership, and communication coach. It's a lot of words, but it really is all the same thing in terms of finding your voice, finding your agency, and finding your boundaries.
Can you tell us more about your approach to helping women set boundaries and communicating assertively?
So a big part of my approach too is actually starting with your existing strengths, because most people, women, anybody, you're actually setting boundaries somewhere in your life, but not everywhere. So I usually try to come from a place where you are comfortable setting boundaries and build from there. But a lot of it is also looking at why you're afraid to set boundaries. What are the fears around it? Because most of the time it comes from early childhood experience. That's the psychologist in me. Your fears of expression, your fears of setting boundaries, and your sense of autonomy come from a lack of that in early childhood. So we try to come at it from a place where you are no longer a child. This person can't actually hurt you. Scolding is just not the worst thing in the world, even though it feels it. Because a lot of times when you're trying to set a boundary, you're worried about getting in trouble like a kid. So that comes up for a lot of us without us realizing we're not actually in that position anymore. But I do also want to highlight that it's normal, even if you're so good at setting boundaries, to be afraid at some point or have trouble at some point, not even know what your boundary is until it kind of hits a limit. But yeah, speaking your truth is about saying, no, I don't like this. Yes, I do like this, or I can't do this. I'm at capacity. So a lot of your boundaries also have to involve a lot of self-reflection. So it's an ongoing, like, living process in yourself. And your boundaries will change over time too. Think about yourself as a 20-year-old versus a 30, 40. What you like to do, your limits change, and that's okay. But people around you might be uncomfortable with your changes. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means everyone has to adjust.
Yes, really important. And I think, and maybe this is coming from my own self-evaluation or awareness, is that I'm worried about being my authentic self or saying my truth sometimes because people are going to say something like, wow, you're changed, or whatever they may think and observe based on their perception. But I'm just trying to be who I am. And then you get that feedback, and it's almost creates this little loop. Like, you go back into your shell because someone said something.
Yeah. So
So,
that's a really important piece, that you need to expect pushback when you set a boundary. That's part of the process. Unfortunately, it's not because anyone doesn't want you to be happy or have boundaries. People just don't like change. Once you're a certain way to a person, you're put in a box, a category, of being a certain way. And most people forget that everyone else in the world, you have multiple identities, you're multifaceted. They tend to pigeonhole you in a certain thing, like you can be nice or assertive, but not both. So when I work with you or when I work with anyone, I'm always using the terms and. You're nice and confident. You're kind and have boundaries. It's all and, because you have so many aspects to you and they change depending on where you are. If you're with a friend that asks you how you are, what you want, what you need, you don't actually have to assert yourself as much. But if you're in a place where people are trying to push you past your limit, you do have to assert yourself. So your needs of asserting yourself and communicating change depending on who you're with too. And that's how you have to be a bit fluid and know yourself really well and get to know the people around you.
You mentioned, or I read, or maybe in our previous conversation, assertive versus aggressive, or assertive and aggressive. Can you define the difference in, well, maybe talk about the difference of the two?
Um, the word assertive has kind of gotten a bad rap for women because we're socialized and taught and expected to be very compliant, permissive, submissive in a way. We're expected to put everyone else ahead of ourselves. So when a woman is assertive, they equate it with aggressiveness, but aggressiveness is actually more like bullying. Think of it like that. There's no room for collaboration. There's no room for feedback. There's no room for anyone else to have a voice. Being assertive is actually respectful to you and everyone else around you. It's communicating your needs, but there's still room for other people to have a difference of opinion or a different need. So being assertive is literally just saying, hey, I feel like Thai tonight. How about you? That's an assertive statement. It doesn't have to be more than that. Passive is saying, whatever you want, I have no opinion. Aggressive is saying, it's Thai or nothing. Is that
Yeah,
to
that's very
simplify
clear.
it
Yeah.
at a very common experience people have on a daily basis of choosing dinner?
Well, we already said that this lack of being assertive or creating boundaries can come from childhood, not exploring their voice as an early on. But having maybe, let's say that there's women that are aggressive on the other end of the spectrum.
Mhm.
Does that come from, what does that come from? Like,
It's honestly the same thing, but it manifests differently. So say you're in a household with a lot of people coming at you, or it's hard to get your voice heard. You, instead of becoming passive, you become aggressive. So it's two sides of the same coin, really, of not being able to be heard. But some people tend to go the passive route, and some people might go the aggressive route. When I work with women who are, yeah, more on the aggressive side, there are also a lot of times in fields pretty male dominated and feel that they have to match the tone around them to be heard. And just like in a family, if people are very loud, some people will kind of shrink in and say it's not worth it and I'm just going to stay quiet. And some people will match that energy and become more aggressive and loud and feel like they can't collaborate or they can't be firmly in the assertive but respectful range because they're not heard.
how do you help women balance this assertiveness and empowerment with the societal expectations often placed on women to be nurturing and accommodating?
We go through what is their ideal way of being in the world. Um, who do they respect? Also, I come up with, I try to have people come up with who they admire, who's a model of how they want to be. So, you're not really reinventing the wheel, but who do you find, um, who makes you feel empowered and what makes you feel empowered? And also really acknowledging that societal expectations come from a place of keeping women complacent and compliant, and that they're not in our best interests, and that they come from years and decades and
Mm,
a lifetime of patriarchy, which again does not have to be the way it is. Just because someone expects something of you doesn't mean it's you. And that's the same thing of finding your true voice, your true self. What other people want from you, it doesn't mean you have to give it to them, and it doesn't mean that's who you are. So you have to find and work and build that inner strength to fight back and also handle and stay resilient in the face of pushback and the fact that people might not like what you have to say and that not everyone is going to like you, honestly.
yeah.
That's one of the biggest challenges I see women have, is that they want everyone to like them, to the point where they don't actually ask themselves if they like someone else or if they like what's happening. They're just trying to be liked and be nice. But all that does is make people take advantage of you more and more. So
Yeah.
societal, just because it's the way something's been done, doesn't mean it's the way it has to stay. I mean, that's how progress happens. That's how transformation happens with change.
But it could be hard because
Oh, it's very hard. Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, I was going to ask, well, first I was going to ask, can a person change? Obviously they can, but it takes time. But I think
Takes
the
time.
hardest thing, do you find that I think you said this, it's the hardest thing is that being being resilient and
Mhm.
knowing that not everyone is going to like you. Someone said that to me once, and I've gone through my life like I want everyone to like me, and I try to be nice to everyone. And someone said to me, "Not everyone's going to like you." And to me, it was like the mic dropped. I'm like, what?
Someone liking you just isn't the most important thing. Someone liking doesn't mean respect either. It's not the same thing. Or the idea of liking isn't even maybe what we think of it as someone actually liking you, wanting to spend time with you. Someone might, you think, like you only because they find you easy to manage and get along with. That's not an authentic relationship at
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
So if you want an authentic relationship that involves more back and forth, even confrontation, which is not a dirty word. And actually, I did a blog and a live on why confrontation is good for relationships, right? If there's no true discussion, a back and forth, which is essentially what a confrontation is, a discussion, there's no authenticity.
right,
But I know it's really hard to change, but it is absolutely possible. I've been doing it for women with years. It's my favorite thing when someone says, "You helped me find my voice. I'm not being taken advantage of in my relationships. I asked for a raise at work." There's so many ways this helps you.
right. Wow. Do you? Is there a certain age group that you find struggles with this the most?
Honestly, no, because even as societal expectations change, and it might be easier now to be vocal and you can find community online, it still stems from your early childhood. So
Mm.
everyone's family dynamics come from a different place, or um, they may be able to speak up at work but not at home, or vice versa. So I really see this across the age range. My ideal clients that I work with are usually aged like 30 to 50, but I have so many people transitioning from home to college that also struggle to find their boundaries. That's a transitional stage in life, right? They go from being a child to you're dropped in and expected to be some kind of adult suddenly. And
Right.
that is a huge time of self-reflection and finding your voice and who you want to be and going from friends of proximity to friends of choice as well. So that's a
Mm.
lot of self-discovery and a lot of navigating new kind of relational dynamics that you might not have ever experienced before. In my therapy work too, I work with a lot of women who I try to help them find their anger and connect with it, because a lot of times they tend to blame themselves for all the all the failure or wrongs, things I consider failures, whether it's a bad relationship or a bad job or even a bad grade. The younger generation I find is so stressed about grades and career, um, and a little bit older is more about relationships. But when they can connect to their anger and turn it from blame to, hey, there was another person here creating this dynamic, and I participated, but I'm not solely to blame. I feel like, as you're saying, the chakras, like, it opens up their heart center. It opens
Yeah.
up their voice.
Compassion,
A lot of them talk
self-compassion.
about like a flood coming out
Yeah.
of anger, like I have a lot of people journal on these things with some prompts and mindset work and ask themselves specific questions that direct things externally or whatever they're struggling with. And connecting with your anger is actually a really healthy thing to do as a woman, because we tend to suppress it because we're
Yes.
not supposed to be angry. Angry is bad, but it's really just part of a full range of emotions.
But how do we process that anger when, you know, like, do we yell at a pillow or, punch a pillow, yell, or maybe go in a room? Like, in my mind, sometimes I feel like I'm punching a punching bag to get
Hmm.
that anger out, screaming, all those things are
All
good,
of those
right?
things, all
Yeah.
of those things are fantastic. I've done martial arts most of my life, and well, I actually don't want to hit someone. I love the feeling of discipline and power, and breaking a board with my hand is so cool. And actually, for my birthday this year, I'm gonna go to a smash room, break shit, break
That's why they
things.
have those. So we could go and
Yeah,
smash stuff. Yeah.
yeah, because there's
I would
nothing
love that.
wrong with anger as long as it's directed the right way
Yeah.
and processed. it's not meant to be eliminated, and I know a lot of women think it should be eliminated and that it's just bad, but it again, processed the right way, expressed the right way, is healthy.
So I do qigong, which works with our energy, which there are movements that help to release things within us that we
Mhm,
want to do that. And anger is associated with the organs of the liver and the gallbladder, which is then
mm,
associated with also the fascia and the tissue. So
mm,
when we're angry, we're tense and we tense
mhm.
the body. And so our body is not moving the way it should be. It's related to the wood energy. And we feel very stiff and rigid because we can't release that. To release it is really important.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm not saying that that relates to having a voice, but in a way it is because you're expressing yourself in a way that is healthy for you. Yeah.
your opinion isn't, yeah, your anger doesn't have to hurt anyone, but also say it does upset someone, that's also okay, they will get over it.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's a
I,
real
I
relationship, you can be angry and repair. That's the whole. So psychology, a basis of, psychoanalytic therapy is that a lot of it is rupture and repair. We get failed, we misalign, and then we repair it. And that's how relationships grow. And that's how you grow. You make a mistake and
mm,
then apologize, acknowledge, repair it, get stronger. If you could think about a relationship where there was a rupture or a misalignment, and then you guys
yeah.
talked about it, doesn't it make it stronger and better and you know each other better?
Yes, it does. So, which leads me now or segues to relationship, like intimate relationships, husband, wife, partners, wife, husband. Sometimes one partner doesn't want to talk
Yeah,
and has a hard
yeah,
time. And then you're trying to talk and you're trying to express yourself. And then, no one's listening. That's hard too.
yeah. Very. Yeah. That's such a common dynamic where the women want to talk and the men don't, or one part. It's not even women and men. It's like people find each other that are, like you said, like
That opposite.
the complement or the
Yeah.
opposite, right? So
Compliment.
you inevitably end up with someone who is less talkative, less emotional, less than you, or more if you're on the lesser side.
Right.
And it works, especially in the beginning, because there might not be room for both. But over time, you guys want to come to an actual like equilibrium or middle ground, and it can become very hard.
Yeah.
Any couples therapist will tell you to try not to get angry at the person and use I statements, I need, could you, could we, that kind of thing. But you cannot control another
Yeah.
person, which is the problem. But yeah, I think that's really frustrating. It's really common. It doesn't always survive, unfortunately.
Right. But at
Yeah,
the same time, don't be afraid to make those I
absolutely.
need, I feel like I would like
Yeah.
those statements, even if
Especially if you're with a low communicator, they don't know what you need.
right.
They just think if you don't say anything, they'll think everything's fine because they're fine with very little
Yeah.
communication. But if you need more, you have to say it because they don't need the same thing as you.
Right. And so okay, let's talk about women asking for help. A lot of women
Mm,
and you mentioned we talked you have a toddler, right?
yes.
When women have young children, they're in this uh bubble almost, right? They're
Hmm.
raising and you're working too and everything, but we need help. We need to ask for help. We can't just
Yeah.
assume we're going to do it because then there's this breakdown. Somebody suffers. I always say
Oh,
something's
yeah.
got to give, right? So asking for help, that's another way, we need to communicate when we need it. Do you find that you work with women also who have a hard time asking for assistance because maybe they feel that there's a
Yes.
weakness
Yes.
that they're projecting?
A weakness, or most of the time they're worried about feeling like a burden to someone.
Ah,
Again,
yeah.
it's still this centered on I don't want to put out anyone else with my needs, with whether it's I need a voice or a boundary or anything like that. Um, so they don't really perceive it as weakness per se. You know what? That's not true. It comes like, especially motherhood changes things. people, people have a lot of guilt of not being a good enough mom if they need help. I don't see it the same at people's jobs necessarily, but this societal expectation of mothers to have this innate ability to do it all
Yeah.
and not need help because that's how it was done in the past. But also, it's not true that's how it was done in the past. There were communities and villages, literally. So I see that a lot with new moms and moms, again, of multiples. They're like, well, other people did this. I must be doing something wrong if I'm feeling overwhelmed. And there's so much more people talking about how, no, it's just super hard and it's really sucks. And if you don't have help, you will feel like you're drowning all the time.
Yeah.
But asking for help, I think, as a mom can make people feel weak.
I saw on your website that you work with women and ADHD. Can we talk
Oh
about
yeah,
adult ADHD? Because that's kind of a new thing. Or maybe
sure, yeah.
I feel it's a new thing because now people as adults are getting diagnosed. How do you go
It's
about
new in
getting
the it's new in the
diagnosed
it's new in the media.
in the
So
media?
yeah,
Yeah.
I ended up specializing in it because um I've been working, I do neuropsych testing, so I work with learning disabilities throughout the age range, but I started getting a lot of these referrals for women in their 20s and 30s saying that nothing has quite felt right and they have all these challenges, but they were thought of as dreamers or low effort in school, even though they, did well enough and understood concepts. So women's ADHD, oftentimes, not always, but more often than boys, is inattentive type. So it doesn't have the behavioral problems that get noticed in school.
Right. Is it more
So
like ADD?
the term is the same. In the past, it might have been ADD. The DSM, the terminology changes every couple of
Okay.
years as they update it. So now it's just ADHD, inattentive type, hyperactive type, or combined. It's like there's a slash between attention deficit / hyperactivity.
Okay.
So you can either have the hyperactive piece or not, or have a little bit. So a lot of women end up just having the inattentive type where they're more internally distracted. So they get labeled as low effort, not trying hard enough. It's all in your head. And then as adults, like, no, there's still something going on. There's something wrong. And there's something different about the brain chemistry and the development. So that's why a lot of women are getting diagnosed as adults now, because they were overlooked in school. And with some accommodations in school, like extra time, refocusing
Yep.
help, things like
Yeah.
that, they could have done better. But instead, they internalize the shame and assume, because everyone's saying they're just not trying hard enough, that there's something wrong with them, as opposed to a disorder that has a treatment protocol.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's kind of what you were asking about, but
Yeah. I was just, maybe women out there that are listening don't
mhm.
realize that there's adult ADHD or women ADHD. And
Yeah. So I do a lot of, honestly, primarily ADHD testing now. And to get diagnosed itself, you don't need like a whole neuropsych evaluation,
yeah.
but it's what's great about it is that it helps you understand actually all of your cognitive processes. Are you better verbally? Are you better visually? Working memory is the kind of memory where you're trying to hold information in your mind and then reuse it without the help of visuals or pen and paper. There's processing speed, which is separate from attention. There's memory, which is separate again from attention. So think about it. If you're not paying attention to what's being said to you because you're internally distracted or distracted by that noise over there or something you saw at the corner of your eye, that's not a memory problem. It's an attention problem because it never
Right.
made it into your memory.
Interesting.
So a
Okay.
lot of people think they have a memory problem when they have an attention problem.
That's
So yeah, I
interesting.
mean, I really do love working with those women. I actually also do now executive functioning coaching to help people with create systems, routines for themselves, find something that works to help them. Because a big issue with ADHD is initiation, getting started, right? People procrastinate, but they also don't have a system in place where they're actually making it easier for themselves. So things like you might not realize, like something as simple as washing the dishes actually has a couple of steps leading up to it before you start to wash the
Mm.
dishes. So separating out tasks or setting small amounts of time, like for 10 minutes, I'm going to do this. is much more doable than I have to do all of something, which is like an abstract concept. So
Right. It could be overwhelming too.
exactly. You know, like if I look at the kitchen and I see like it's just covered,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna walk away. As
Yeah.
opposed to saying, I'm gonna start in this corner and do that for 10 minutes and then go do something else. You know,
Yeah.
really make it manageable.
That really could help people in the corporate environment too, or in a job
Totally.
environment, right? When they're
Yeah.
working and they're just, because I know we're connected 24/7. So you're really not stepping away from anything. And if you
Yeah.
don't check your emails, I hear this often. If I don't check my emails in 10 minutes, I could have 100 emails and then I
Yeah.
don't know which ones to go to or which ones
Yeah.
are priorities. So it could be quite overwhelming, I think, for
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
And,
mean,
and and
yeah,
some of it's trial and error, like what works for you might not
yeah,
work for someone else, but there's a lot of options to choose from. Same way when I help, you know, people with anxiety or pain, I've worked with pain management too, and talk about different types of meditation. Especially with my ADHD folks, I tend to do an active meditation, like progressive muscle relaxation, where they're focusing on parts of their body, because just trying to sit and let your thoughts flow, that doesn't work for them, and that's fine. And I also recommend a guided meditation, so you're not trying to come up with the action yourself, you're just following a guideline. And with progressive muscle relaxation, you're breathing and either tensing and releasing or relaxing muscles as you go, like bit by bit throughout
yeah,
your body. So there's also activity, which
right.
helps people focus on it and get less distracted.
You do a lot. I'm thinking, wow, she's got a
Mhm.
lot of systems in place to help a lot of people. This is
Yeah.
fantastic.
I mean,
I
it's all just kind of happens, and I could never just do one thing personally. So yeah, it keeps developing, seeing what the needs
Yeah,
are and what really makes me feel good and what kind of help makes me feel good to give.
yes, and I think a message out there to people who are listening, anybody that's listening, men or women, that if you feel that something is off, don't be afraid to ask and get professional help, because you know what they need based
Mhm.
on right analysis, evaluation, whatever it is.
Well, we've also like as a therapist, I mean, most of your therapists out there have seen it all, and
Mm,
people don't come to us when they're feeling good. Like a lot of first sessions involve crying because this is the first place they've been allowed to express it. And I can't tell you how many women apologize for crying in a session. And you don't have to apologize. To be honest, I expected. I didn't expect you to come here when you're feeling good. I expected you to come in when you were kind of on your last leg and needed help and waited probably too long. We all do it, right? We wait too long.
yeah,
So yeah, they apologize so much when they're crying, but that's just a way you express emotion. There's literally nothing wrong with crying. And some people are also just criers. That's how their emotions manifest. It
yeah.
doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean anything about that. But
It's
yes, like
healthy.
a therapist or someone like myself that's been doing it for years, we look at your patterns, we look at your experiences, and we adapt in the moment to help you find what will work for you, honestly. Not to push you to be like me, but to encourage you to find your authentic voice, which is not going to sound like mine or someone else's. Um, you're going to discover what you're comfortable and build it up slowly so that you can feel confident and assertive and a sense of agency in all areas of your life. But
Yeah.
when you come in, we expect that you're struggling, and that's okay.
And be unapologetic. Right.
Unapologetic. You do
Be
not, yeah.
Yeah, I say that to people, and I find myself and catch myself saying I'm sorry, and I do it less. But even I said something, my son forgot something the other day when he went, I took him back to school, and I said, "Oh," I said to him, "I'm sorry." I texted it, and he goes, "You
Mm,
don't have to apologize." And I thought, wow. I said, "You're right. He's right. I don't
yeah,
have to
that's
apologize.
right.
It really wasn't my fault." And, coming from a 20-year-old, I thought that was pretty good. A very quiet 20-year-old, but it's very
Yeah,
profound on his part, and it made me feel really good. I want to ask you other question here,
yeah.
about women supporting other women. sometimes doesn't always happen.
And I think it does. I think it depends on the environment and the person. There's obviously a much bigger push, again, in the online world of women helping women and women supporting women. I myself prefer to, work with women providers and vendors and things like that if I can. But yeah, a lot of places women are pitted against each other in competition. Certain environments, um, where men are seen as more powerful, capable, that tend to get the promotions, women might want to not align with other women because it's also, if it's like a diversity situation too, where there's only two women on the team, they're going to be in direct competition because they don't feel they can both get promoted.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of environments that really pit women against each other, dating being one of the worst ones, to
Oh
be
yeah. I mean,
honest.
think
Oh
of
my
that. I haven't
God.
dated in a while. Oh my
I
gosh.
haven't
I
I haven't in a while either, but I remember
Yeah.
it was like the wild. It was like Hunger Games out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did not want to participate in that. So
But
yeah, but there's a lot of situations where women are made to feel that they are in direct competition as opposed to being able to be supportive of one another.
yeah. But hopefully not as much now. I think you're right. I think that society is, or women are starting to work with women
Yeah.
and understand each other and support and help each other grow and transform.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I see that so much in the, like self-employed world. I haven't
yeah,
I've never been in a corporate environment,
I
but I have
have.
worked. Yeah,
It
I
could be
have worked.
tough.
Yeah, I have worked for hospitals and things like that. But
Yeah.
um, also, I guess just as therapists, we're not really in competition with each other, for clients maybe, but honestly, there's enough clients for everyone, and
Yeah.
everyone's niching down to do really specific things. So it's so easy to collaborate with someone who has a specialty that I don't. And every woman I've met with and collaborated with has been so supportive. So I
Yeah.
really think in the self-employed or, small business world, there's a lot of support now where maybe there didn't used to be.
Yeah. Let's encourage women to get together and
Yeah,
support each other and create those communities. I mean, I belong to
absolutely.
some other communities where they're all women, and it's really nice to see women supporting each other and helping each other grow, because I know that there's a lot of women who are empty nesters who are
Hmm.
changing their path and trying
Yeah,
to grow and and it takes a lot of courage to do that
yeah,
and to really get out there. And I think a lot of
yeah.
the work that you're doing helps them because they're a little worried or fearful or self-judging
Oh
and
yeah, a supportive group is changing. Actually, I have a friend overseas that works in leadership, and it's usually like a combined environment, and I focus specifically on women, so she actually had the opportunity to work just with women, and she said it was a magical experience, unlike, with the mixed groups, that there was, because women leaders struggle with different things than male leaders because of societal expectations, internalized gender roles, things like that. So not having to explain themselves was a whole different experience. And that's what I love too about women helping women. We don't have to explain why we're struggling or why we're having problems in this or why we don't feel necessarily comfortable speaking up. I mean, sometimes it's just a safety issue that men don't struggle with on a day-to-day basis walking down the street. So not having to explain yourself and just feeling completely understood, um, in a group format is so, I really love women's groups. Like I run
yeah,
a confident communication group and an a leadership group. And it's so helpful for women to see that other people are having the same struggles at work, at home, whatever it is, and that they're not alone and there's nothing wrong with them. And they
yes,
all support each other and help each other. And um, it makes the process of empowering yourself easier, actually.
yeah, I agree. Tell us about what the work, then the groups, the work that you do, what your offerings are. Great opportunity to talk about that
Yes,
now.
I'd love
Yeah.
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I've done workshops in the past on assertive communication, and I'm launching actually now an ongoing program that'll probably be available around Black Friday, to sign up for confident communication and leadership. And all my marketing coaches and things like that are like leadership, leadership, leadership for professional women. And that's great. But as a woman, you really have to be a leader in every aspect of your life. You're making thousands of decisions a day for your family, for yourself, for everything. So while it's maybe geared a little bit towards, a work environment, it's usable everywhere. So this is going to be a 12-week small group program, no more than 10 women at a time, because that's, I think, the max where you can all really get to talk and really express yourselves and support each other. And you're going to find your authentic voice. You're going to learn how to communicate. I help people kind of get little templates for themselves on how they're comfortable setting a limit. We remove a lot of fluff, and we work a lot on mindset, why you're fearful of it, but then switch it to what can you gain from expressing yourself. We all worry about what's going to go wrong, but what can you gain? What would change for you, right?
Yeah.
And that's where people they stop before they get to that point.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that. I do offer one-on-one coaching and therapy, but I'm trying to launch the group because my one-on-one spots are so limited at this point, being a toddler mom and doing testing and therapy and everything. But I just love the group environment.
And so it's virtual, right? So because
Oh
I know
yeah, all
you're in New
virtual.
York City, so everything's all virtual.
New
So
York
you have a
City.
big reach when you're doing group.
Yes, all virtual. And yeah, with coaching, it's a big reach. With therapy, it's limited to New Jersey, New York, and Florida, where I'm licensed. But yeah, the coaching is anywhere in the world. I've worked with women in London. I did a collaboration with someone in the United Arab Emirates.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I love the reach of coaching.
Yeah.
And then also I have a free Facebook group where you can just join. It's growing, it's building. It hasn't been my focus just because of so much, one-on-one work, but I'd love to create this community, collective, even, if you will, of women supporting women in all areas of empowerment, self-care, self-love, finding your voice, everything like that.
And that's on Facebook. And I'll put all the
Yeah.
links. You also
Yeah.
have a few freebies as you go on your website, which I'll also put. I know there's some downloadable things, which I downloaded, some free ebooks and things like that.
It's so they actually go together. I didn't realize when I was creating them how they go together, but one's a free empowerment journal with daily prompts.
Yeah.
So like every time I get mindset prompts, it's always in different places. But so this is all in one downloadable PDF. Each day has a different empowerment prompt to help you reflect, realign. And then there's a 30-day empowerment calendar to take action. So they actually, I think, work pretty well together, which again, I didn't realize at the time, but I know some people love to journal and some people just want to take steps. So small steps every day to move yourself towards an empowered life.
Those small steps for people that need those small steps, right?
Absolutely. And honestly, I recommend starting small, because if you start too big, you tend to reinforce your ideas that you can't do something. It's like the idea of, when people set a New Year's resolution that's just too large to maintain, and they inevitably stop by February. These small steps can be done daily. They're not huge changes, but they lead to big changes. That's, I think, part of the key is to start small and get little wins under your belt.
There's a book that I don't remember who wrote it, but it's called Atomic Habits, and I have it upstairs.
Yes, no, I have
actually, right. Small, and celebrate those little small steps and those small wins that you do, because those are all collectively, all the little wins and steps will lead to the big ones. Is there anything else that you wanted to add, or?
I don't think so. It's been a pleasure talking with you,
it's
and
fun here. Yeah, it's you have so much to offer, and I really encourage people to find you if they are struggling with finding their voice, and or even if they don't know if they're struggling with finding their voice, because sometimes you don't, because you're doing the same thing all the time. And
and you're just ready maybe for a little change. Like, just reach out, DM it. I share a lot of free information. It's not all about, paying to work. Like, come to the Facebook group, DM me, ask me a question. I help other therapists. I help women. I've trained leadership teams. I just love helping women find their voice. It makes me very emotional when I've had a success like that, and I see the change, and I see someone setting a limit and feeling better. That's all I want for the world, honestly.
I love that. Thank you so much, Zoe, for being here today.
Thank you, Rose.